Sophie, do you think pineapple belongs on pizza?
Jamie, that is a very controversial question.
I know, but that's actually a perfect way to start today's lesson, because today we're talking about how to express opinions in English.
And this is one of the most important skills you can learn, because in real life, at work, with friends, in class, in interviews, people will ask you, "What do you think?" or "What's your opinion?"
And if you don't know how to answer confidently in English, it can feel really uncomfortable.
But after today's episode, you'll have everything you need. Phrases, vocabulary, real dialogues, all of it.
So let's jump in. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Sophie. Welcome to Fluent Daily, the English learning channel that helps you speak naturally, confidently, and every single day.
Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet.
Let's go. Section 1. Why expressing opinions is hard.
Before we learn the phrases, let's talk about why this is difficult for English learners. Jamie, what do you think are the main problems?
Great question. I think there are 3 big reasons.
Tell us.
Number 1, learners don't know which phrase to use. Should I say, I think, or in my opinion, or I feel like? They all seem similar, but they're used in different ways.
Exactly. Number 2, learners are afraid to sound rude or too strong. In some cultures, disagreeing directly is impolite. But in English, there are polite and natural ways to share your opinion, even when you disagree.
And number 3, learners don't know how to soften their opinions. If you say, that idea is wrong, that sounds aggressive. But if you say, I'm not sure I completely agree with that, suddenly it sounds professional and polite.
So today, we're going to fix all 3 problems. You'll learn how to introduce your opinion clearly, how to agree and disagree politely, how to soften strong opinions, and how to use opinion phrases in real conversations.
We have a lot to cover, so let's start with the basics.
Basic opinion phrases.
Okay, section 2. Basic phrases for expressing opinions. These are the foundation. Even A2 learners can use these.
We're going to teach you 5 groups of phrases. Ready?
Group 1. Saying what you think.
These are the most common opinion starters in English. Listen and repeat after me. I think. I believe. I feel. I feel like. In my opinion. In my view. From my point of view. As far as I'm concerned.
Let's break those down a little. I think and I believe are the most common. You can use them in almost any situation, formal or informal.
For example, I think English is a very useful language. I believe learning vocabulary every day is important.
I feel and I feel like are more personal and emotional. I feel this lesson is really helpful. I feel like speaking practice is the best way to improve.
Now, in my opinion and in my view are slightly more formal. You'd use these in essays, presentations, or professional conversations. In my opinion, grammar is important, but not the most important thing. In my view, listening is the hardest skill to develop.
And from my point of view, and as far as I'm concerned, these signal that you know other people might disagree, but you're sharing your perspective. From my point of view, speaking every day is more useful than studying grammar. As far as I'm concerned, confidence is the key to speaking English well.
Perfect. Let's practice these together. Sophie, I'll give you a topic, and you give me an opinion using one of these phrases.
Okay, I'm ready.
Topic: social media.
In my opinion, social media can be useful, but it also wastes a lot of time.
Great. Topic: learning English.
I believe that listening to English every day is the most effective method.
Excellent. Now, learners, pause the video and try this yourself. Pick a topic: food, travel, technology, education, and say an opinion sentence using one of these phrases. Don't be shy. Say it out loud.
Now, group 2, asking for someone's opinion.
Because conversations go both ways, right? You'll often need to ask for the other person's opinion too.
Here are the most natural ways to do that.
What do you think? What's your opinion? How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree? What do you reckon? Informal, British. Any thoughts?
The most common and natural one is, what do you think? You'll hear this constantly in everyday English.
What are your thoughts on this is more formal, great for meetings or presentations.
And what do you reckon is British slang, very casual. If you watch British TV shows or YouTube, you'll hear this a lot.
Let's hear these in context. Jamie and I are having lunch together.
Mini dialogue, lunch conversation. I'm trying to decide between the pasta and the salad. What do you think?
Well, I feel like the pasta is more filling, but the salad is healthier. What are your thoughts?
As far as I'm concerned, life is too short to eat salad when there's pasta.
Fair enough. I think I agree with you on that one.
See how natural that feels? We used 4 different opinion phrases in just a short conversation.
Now, group 3, expressing strong opinions.
Sometimes you feel strongly about something. These phrases help you show that, but still sound polite and natural.
I strongly believe. I'm absolutely convinced that. I'm certain that. There's no doubt in my mind that. I honestly think. To be honest. Frankly speaking. I have to say.
These phrases add emphasis. They tell the listener, this is not just a passing thought. I really mean this.
For example, I'm absolutely convinced that daily practice is the key to fluency. There is no doubt in my mind that reading books improves vocabulary. To be honest, I think English grammar rules are often very confusing.
Notice to be honest and frankly speaking. These signal that you're about to say something honest, even if it might be uncomfortable. They make the listener pay attention.
And I have to say is useful when you want to share a strong opinion, but still sound polite. I have to say, that was one of the best presentations I've heard. I have to say, I'm not sure I agree with that approach.
Group 4, expressing tentative opinions, when you're not sure.
This is so important. Not every opinion is strong. Sometimes you're still thinking or you're not completely sure. English has great phrases for this.
I'm not sure, but I think. I might be wrong, but. If I'm not mistaken. I tend to think. I suppose. I guess. It seems to me that. As far as I know. These phrases soften your opinion. They show intellectual humility. You're open to being wrong, or you're still forming your view. For example, I'm not sure, but I think the exam is on Friday. I might be wrong, but this grammar rule seems inconsistent to me. It seems to me that speaking practice is more valuable than reading for fluency. I suppose and I guess are very common in casual conversation. I suppose she has a point. I guess you're right about that. And one more, Group 5, changing or updating your opinion.
This happens in real conversations all the time. Someone gives you new information and you change your mind. These phrases help you do that gracefully. Actually, now that I think about it, on reflection, having thought about it more, I've changed my mind. I used to think, but now I think. Now that you mention it, that's a good point. Maybe I was wrong. You've convinced me.
Changing your mind is not a weakness. In English, being willing to update your opinion shows intelligence and open-mindedness.
For example, I used to think grammar was the most important thing, but now I think speaking confidence matters more. Now that you mention it, I think you're right. Daily listening really does make a huge difference.
Perfect. That's our 5 groups of basic opinion phrases. Let's do a quick review.
Group 1, introducing your opinion. I think, I believe, in my opinion, in my view, as far as I'm concerned.
Group 2, asking for opinions. What do you think? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about that?
Group 3, strong opinions. I strongly believe. I'm absolutely convinced. To be honest, frankly speaking.
Group 4, tentative opinions. I'm not sure, but I might be wrong. It seems to me, I suppose, I guess.
Group 5, changing your opinion. I've changed my mind. You've convinced me now that I think about it.
Great work. Now let's talk about agreeing and disagreeing, because in real conversations, you're reacting to other people's opinions. Agreeing in English.
Agreeing in English. This sounds easy, but there are so many ways to agree, and they have different levels of formality and enthusiasm.
Let's break it down. First, full agreement. You completely agree. Exactly. Absolutely. Definitely. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I think. I think so too. I totally agree. You took the words right out of my mouth. My thoughts exactly.
Let's talk about the feel of these. Exactly and absolutely. These are enthusiastic, strong agreement. You'd use them when someone says something and you feel strongly the same way.
I couldn't agree more. This is one of the most natural sounding phrases in English. It means my agreement is at its maximum level. I agree completely.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is a great idiom. It means the other person said exactly what you were about to say. You can use it to build rapport and show you feel the same way.
Now let's look at partial agreement. You agree with some of what they said, but not everything. I agree to some extent. That's partly true. You have a point, but I see what you mean. However, that's true in some cases, but I mostly agree, but fair point. Although
These phrases are incredibly useful because real conversations are rarely black and white. Usually you agree with part of an idea. Notice the pattern. You start by acknowledging the good point. You have a point, that's true, fair point, and then you add your qualification with but, or however, or although.
This structure is called the yes-but structure, and it's one of the most important conversation patterns in English. Let's hear it in a dialogue. We're talking about whether students should use their phones in class.
Phones in class.
I think students should be allowed to use their phones in class. Smartphones can be great learning tools.
I agree to some extent. They can be useful for looking up information quickly. However, I think most students use them for social media, not for learning.
That's a fair point, but I feel like banning phones completely isn't realistic. Students are going to use them anyway.
You have a point there. Maybe a compromise is better. Phones allowed only for specific activities.
My thoughts exactly. Context matters a lot.
See how the conversation moved forward naturally? Neither of us fully agreed or fully disagreed. We found common ground. That's how real adult conversations work.
Now, let's look at some special agreement phrases. These go beyond just saying, Yes, I agree, and show more nuanced thinking. That's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of it that way. That makes a lot of sense. Now that you put it that way, I agree. I can see where you're coming from. I think you're onto something there.
These phrases show that you're listening, thinking, and engaging with the other person's idea. This is what makes you sound like a sophisticated speaker of English, not just someone reciting phrases.
I can see where you're coming from is especially useful. It means I understand your perspective and your reasoning. It doesn't necessarily mean you agree 100%, but you respect their point of view.
And I think you're onto something. This is a great informal phrase. It means your idea has merit. You might be right. It's encouraging and positive.
Let's practice. Learners, here's a sentence. Listen, then say one of our agreement phrases. Ready?
Here's a sentence. I think the best way to learn English is to watch movies and TV shows every day.
Pause and say your agreement. Try, that makes a lot of sense. Or, I couldn't agree more. Or, you have a point, but if you want to add something.
Great practice. Now let's tackle the harder skill, disagreeing politely. Disagreeing politely.
This is where many learners struggle the most. How do you disagree without sounding rude or aggressive?
In English, especially in professional or social contexts, the way you disagree matters as much as what you disagree about.
Let's start with soft disagreement. These are the most gentle ways to express a different opinion.
I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I completely agree. I see your point, but I think I understand where you're coming from, but that's an interesting perspective. But I think I take your point, but I hear what you're saying, but I'm not convinced. I'd have to disagree. I'm afraid I disagree.
Notice two important things. First, these phrases almost always start with something positive or neutral. I see your point. I understand. That's an interesting perspective. This cushions the disagreement.
Second, the word but is doing a lot of work here. But signals, I heard you, I acknowledged you, and now here comes my different opinion.
I'm afraid I disagree. This is a very polite, formal phrase. The word afraid doesn't mean you're scared. It's a softener. It makes the disagreement sound more apologetic and respectful.
Let's look at more direct disagreement phrases for when you need to be clearer.
Actually, I think the opposite is true. I disagree because I don't think that's quite right. That's not how I see it. I would argue that. With respect, I think, actually, I'd say. In contrast, I believe.
With respect, this is an important phrase. When you say with respect, I think, you're telling the other person, I respect you as a person, but I disagree with your idea. It separates the person from the opinion.
I would argue that. This is a great academic and professional phrase. It signals a counter-argument. You're not just saying no, you're presenting an alternative position.
And that's not how I see it. This is personal but not aggressive. You're saying, my perspective is different. It keeps the disagreement in the realm of opinion, not fact.
Now, let's talk about disagreeing with facts or information, not just opinions. This is slightly different.
Actually, I think you'll find that. I'm not sure that's correct. I think, actually, the data suggests. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually, I think there might be a slight misunderstanding here. That's not quite accurate. What I've heard is,
Be careful here. When you correct someone's facts, the phrasing is very important. You don't want to embarrass them. That's why phrases like, I think you'll find, and if I'm not mistaken, are so useful. They soften the correction.
Let's look at a full dialogue showing polite disagreement at work. We're in a work meeting discussing a marketing strategy.
Dialogue work meeting. I think we should increase our social media budget. Social media is definitely the most effective marketing channel right now.
That's an interesting perspective, Jamie. I understand where you're coming from. Social media does reach a lot of people, but I'm not sure I completely agree. I think email marketing actually has a higher conversion rate. I take your point about email marketing. However, I would argue that for brand awareness, social media is more powerful. Our target audience spends most of their time on Instagram and TikTok.
That's a fair point. I'm not convinced it's worth doubling the budget, though. Maybe we could allocate an additional 20% to social media and keep the rest in email?
Actually, now that you put it that way, that sounds like a sensible compromise. I think that could work.
Great. I think we're aligned then.
Did you catch all the opinion and disagreement phrases in that dialogue? Let's count them.
That's an interesting perspective, acknowledging the other view.
I understand where you're coming from, showing empathy.
But I'm not sure I completely agree. Soft disagreement.
I take your point, partial agreement.
I would argue that presenting a counter-argument.
That's a fair point, acknowledging the other person.
I'm not convinced. Polite disagreement.
Now that you put it that way, changing opinion gracefully.
8 different opinion phrases in one short dialogue. That's how natural English conversation works.
Now, I want to teach you something very important. The yes, but yes structure. This is a professional conversation technique that makes you sound extremely polished.
The structure is acknowledge, disagree, offer alternative.
Step 1, acknowledge the other person's idea positively. Step 2, express your disagreement. Step 3, offer your own alternative or solution.
Example. Topic. Should students wear uniforms?
Someone says, I think school uniforms should be mandatory. They reduce inequality among students.
Your response using yes but yes. Acknowledge. That's a really valid point. Uniforms do help reduce visible differences in wealth. However, I'm not sure I completely agree mandatory uniforms are the best solution because they can limit individual expression. Perhaps a more flexible dress code, with guidelines rather than strict rules, could achieve the same effect while giving students more freedom.
See how that works? You didn't just say no. You showed you listened, you gave your reason, and you offered a constructive alternative.
This skill is gold for job interviews, academic discussions, and professional meetings.
Let's practice. Learners, I'll say a statement, use the yes but yes structure to respond. Pause the video and try.
Ready?
Here's the statement. I believe working from home is better than working in an office.
Vocabulary deep dive.
Let's build your opinion vocabulary. Knowing more words means you can express nuance, the subtle differences between ideas.
We're going to teach you 3 vocabulary groups today. Opinion adjectives, opinion adverbs, and advanced opinion nouns.
Group 1. Opinion adjectives. These describe an opinion or topic.
Controversial causes strong disagreement. This is a controversial topic. Debatable can be argued either way. Whether social media is good is debatable. Subjective depends on personal opinion. Art is very subjective. Objective, based on facts, not feelings. We need an objective analysis. Valid, logical, well-supported. That's a valid argument. Compelling, very convincing. She made a compelling case. Biased, unfairly favoring one side. That report seems biased. One-sided, only showing one perspective. His argument was very one-sided. Nuanced, complex, with many details. The truth is more nuanced than that. Well-founded, based on good evidence. Her concerns are well-founded.
These words are incredibly useful in discussions, presentations, and essays. Let's hear them in example sentences.
The question
of whether social media does more harm than good is highly controversial. I think the argument is valid, but it's not very compelling. I need more evidence. His view seemed a bit biased. He only talked about the positives. The situation is more nuanced than people think. It's not just black and white.
Now, Group 2, opinion adverbs. These modify how strong or certain your opinion is.
Clearly. This is clearly a problem. Obviously. There are two sides to this. Certainly. I certainly think we should reconsider. Arguably. This is arguably the most important issue of our time. Undeniably. The results are undeniably positive. Admittedly, I was wrong about that. Supposedly the new policy will help, expresses doubt. Apparently most people disagree. Frankly, I'm surprised by this result. Personally, I prefer a different approach.
Let's focus on a few tricky ones. Arguably. This doesn't mean you could argue. It means in the opinion of many people or with good reason to support this. It makes a statement sound supported, but not absolute.
Admittedly, this is very useful when you want to acknowledge a weakness in your argument or when you're being honest about changing your mind. Admittedly, I didn't have all the facts when I first formed this opinion.
Supposedly and apparently both indicate that you're reporting what others believe, not your own firm opinion. Supposedly often has a slightly skeptical tone.
And personally, this is a soft opener that signals I'm allowed to give my individual perspective. It invites others to disagree without conflict. Personally, I find grammar rules less important than communication skills.
Group 3, advanced opinion nouns. These help you talk about the process of forming and expressing opinions.
Viewpoint. From a student's viewpoint, this is very challenging. Perspective. Let me offer a different perspective. Standpoint. From a practical standpoint, this plan is too expensive. Stance. What is your stance on this issue? Position. Our company's position is clear. Argument. I find her argument convincing. Claim. That's a bold claim. Assumption. That argument rests on a false assumption. Assertion. That assertion needs evidence. Premise. I disagree with the basic premise of your argument.
These nouns are especially useful in academic and professional English. Let's look at a few in more depth.
Viewpoint and perspective are similar, but perspective often suggests more background context, like your life experience or professional position shapes how you see something.
Stance and position are used in formal or political contexts. For example, the government's stance on immigration has changed. The company took a strong position against the new regulation.
Claim, assertion, and premise, these are useful for academic discussions and debates, where you're analyzing arguments critically. For example, her main claim is that technology improves education. That assertion is not supported by the data. I challenge the premise that more choice always leads to better outcomes.
Let's do a vocabulary exercise. I'll say a sentence, and you pick the best word from today's vocabulary. Ready? From my blank as a teacher, homework is essential. Is it viewpoint, stance, or claim?
Answer: viewpoint or perspective. Both work. From my viewpoint or perspective as a teacher.
Next, that's a blank argument. I can see it both ways. Controversial, debatable, or compelling.
Answer: debatable. Debatable means it can be argued from both sides.
One more. Blank, I disagree with the whole approach. Frankly, arguably, or supposedly.
Answer: frankly, because you're expressing your own direct, honest opinion.
Excellent. Great vocabulary work. Real-world dialogues.
This is where everything comes together. We're going to show you opinion expressions in 6 realistic everyday scenarios.
Scenario 1. Talking with friends about a movie.
Dialogue 1. Movie discussion. Did you watch that new sci-fi movie everyone's talking about?
Yes, I finished it last night. Honestly, I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Really? I'm not sure I agree. I mean, the visuals were stunning, but I feel like the plot was confusing.
That's a fair point about the plot. I'll admit it took me a while to follow. But in my opinion, the complexity is what makes it so interesting. I like films that make you think.
I see where you're coming from. Personally, though, I prefer films with clearer storytelling. As far as I'm concerned, if I have to watch it 3 times to understand it, something's gone wrong.
I suppose that's one way to look at it. My thoughts are that not every film needs to be straightforward. Some films are meant to challenge you.
I take your point. I guess I'll give it a second watch.
I think you'll appreciate it more the second time. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Fantastic. Now, scenario 2, discussing news or current events.
Dialogue 2. News discussion. I was reading about that new policy on remote work. Apparently the government wants to encourage more people to work from home. What do you think?
I'm in 2 minds about it. I believe remote work has real benefits. Less commuting, better work-life balance. But I'm not convinced a government policy is the right approach. In my view, that should be a decision between employers and employees.
That's an interesting perspective. I'd have to disagree slightly. I think without some kind of policy, many employers won't offer flexible working unless they're pushed to.
You have a point. Admittedly, I hadn't considered that angle. I suppose some sectors really do need external pressure to change.
Exactly. And from a social standpoint, it would help parents with childcare responsibilities a lot.
That's undeniably true. I think I'm coming around to your view. A general guideline, not a strict rule, might be a good compromise.
That's what I'd argue for too. Not a mandate, but a framework.
Scenario 3. A job interview. Expressing your professional opinions.
This is crucial for learners. Job interviews in English require you to express opinions professionally and confidently.
So, what do you think is the most important skill for someone in this role?
In my opinion, communication is the most critical skill. I believe that technical knowledge is important, but if you can't explain your ideas clearly to your team, to clients, to management, it creates problems. From my experience, most workplace issues come from miscommunication.
That's an interesting perspective. Some people would argue that technical expertise is more important. What would you say to that?
That's a valid argument, and I certainly agree that technical skills are fundamental. However, I would argue that in most industries today, technical skills can be learned on the job, but strong communication skills take years to develop. I strongly believe that someone with good communication and average technical skills will outperform someone with excellent technical skills, but poor communication.
I tend to agree. How do you handle situations where you disagree with your manager?
That's a great question. I feel it's important to express disagreement respectfully and constructively. My approach would be to say something like, I see your point, and I want to make sure I understand your reasoning. Could I share a different perspective? I think it's possible to be honest about a disagreement while still being professional.
Did you notice? In a job interview, you use more formal phrases. In my opinion, I believe, I would argue, I strongly believe. Very rarely do you use casual phrases like I guess or I reckon. And notice how the candidate disagreed with the interviewer. Not by saying, no, you're wrong, but by saying, that's a valid argument, and I certainly agree that. However, that structure is gold in interviews. It shows maturity and confidence.
Scenario 4. Expressing opinions in class or a meeting. Academic discussion.
What are your thoughts on the idea that social media has made people more connected?
Well, in my view, it's a nuanced issue. From one perspective, social media has undeniably made it easier to stay in touch with people across the world. I have friends in 5 different countries, and we communicate daily because of social media.
That's a well-made point. Does anyone see a different perspective? That's a well-made point. Does anyone see a different perspective?
I'd have to challenge that somewhat. From my standpoint, the connections made on social media are often quite shallow. I would argue that real, meaningful connection requires face-to-face interaction, and social media can actually give us an illusion of connection without the depth.
That's a compelling argument. I take your point about depth. However, I'd argue that for people with social anxiety or disabilities that make face-to-face interaction difficult, online connections may be just as meaningful. I think we shouldn't generalize. You're both raising really interesting points. I think the truth is arguably more complex than either position suggests.
Notice the academic vocabulary. Nuanced, undeniably. From one perspective, I would argue. Compelling argument. Generalize. This is how educated English speakers discuss ideas.
Scenario 5. Talking with family. More casual, more personal. Mom, I've been thinking about going back to university to study for a master's degree. What do you think? Oh, well, I think that's wonderful, in theory. But honestly, I'm a bit worried about the cost. Do you feel like it's worth the investment right now? I believe it would really help my career. In my opinion, having that qualification will open doors that aren't available to me now. I see your point, and I hope you're right. I just feel like maybe it makes more sense to get more work experience first. As far as I'm concerned, experience and qualifications are both important. That's a fair point. I hadn't thought of it from that angle. Maybe I could look into part-time programs. That way I could study and work at the same time. Now that you mention it, that sounds like a much better approach. I think you're onto something there. See how the language shifted? More casual. I feel like. I think. I hadn't thought of it from that angle. Less formal vocabulary, warmer tone.
And scenario 6, expressing opinions online or in writing.
Learners often need to write comments, reviews, emails, or social media posts in English. Here are some useful written opinion phrases.
From my perspective, this product is excellent. In my view, the service could be improved significantly. I strongly believe that this approach needs to change. I would argue that the pricing is not competitive. To my mind, this is the best option available. It is my opinion that further research is needed. I am inclined to agree with the previous comment. With all due respect, I disagree with this assessment. I feel compelled to point out that, on balance, I would recommend this product.
To my mind, this is a more literary or formal version of "in my opinion."
On balance, this phrase signals that you've considered the pros and cons and are now giving your overall conclusion. Very useful in reviews and essays.
I am inclined to agree. This is a gentle way of agreeing. It suggests you're moving towards agreement, but not 100% certain.
And with all due respect, be careful with this one. In everyday speech, it can sometimes sound sarcastic. In formal writing, it's polite. In spoken conversation, use it sparingly.
Softening opinions.
How to soften your opinions. This is an advanced skill that will make you sound incredibly natural and polite.
In English, speaking directly is valued, but too direct can seem aggressive or rude. Native speakers use softeners constantly.
Let's look at 4 types of softeners.
Type 1. Hedging words. These reduce the certainty of your statement.
Maybe, perhaps, possibly, probably, might, could, tend to.
Compare. This plan will fail. Very direct, possibly rude. This plan might have some challenges. Softer, more professional.
Another example, you're wrong. Aggressive. I think you might have missed something here. Polite, still honest.
Type 2. Distancing phrases, creating space between you and the opinion.
It seems to me. It appears that. It would seem. One could argue. Some might say.
These phrases are especially useful in academic writing and formal discussions. By saying "it seems to me" instead of "I think," you present the opinion as an observation rather than a personal belief.
And one could argue is very academic. It signals this is a legitimate position in the debate.
Type 3. Qualifying phrases, adding conditions to your opinion.
In most cases, generally speaking, as a rule, to some extent, up to a point. In certain situations, it depends.
Examples. Generally speaking, more practice leads to faster improvement. Social media is useful, up to a point. After that, it becomes a distraction. Whether it's effective really depends on the context.
It depends. This is one of the most useful two-word phrases in English for opinion discussions. It signals, I'm not going to give you a simple answer because the reality is more complex.
Type 4. Impersonal constructions, removing yourself from the opinion entirely.
It is generally accepted that. It is widely believed that. It is often argued that. Many people feel that. There is a general consensus that. It could be said that.
These are especially important in academic writing, where you shouldn't overuse "I think." You need to present ideas more objectively. For example, it is widely believed that motivation is the key factor in language learning. There is a general consensus that early childhood education has a lasting impact. Let's do a transformation exercise. I'll give you a harsh-sounding opinion, and together we'll make it softer. Ready? Harsh. The new system doesn't work. Softer. I'm not sure the new system is working as intended, or the new system might need some adjustments. Harsh. Your idea is unrealistic. Softer. That's an interesting idea. I wonder if it might be challenging to implement in practice. Harsh. The presentation was boring. Softer. The presentation was informative. I do think it might benefit from some more interactive elements. The softened versions say the same thing, but they say it in a way that respects the other person and opens dialogue instead of closing it.
Common mistakes.
Common mistakes learners make when expressing opinions. Let's fix these right now.
Mistake 1, using "I think" for everything.
I think is wonderful, but if you use it for every single sentence, your speech becomes monotonous and limited.
Instead, vary your phrases. I believe. In my opinion. I feel like. As far as I'm concerned, from my perspective.
Mistake 2. Making opinions sound like facts.
This is very common. For example, English is the most useful language. Is that a fact? No, that's an opinion. You should say, in my opinion, English is one of the most useful languages to learn every year.
Always signal when you're giving an opinion, especially on debatable topics.
Mistake 3, disagreeing too directly.
Learners often translate directly from their first language. In some languages, saying, "No, that's wrong," is perfectly normal. In English conversation, it can sound very blunt.
Replace "No, that's wrong" with "I see your point, but I think there might be another way to look at this right now."
Mistake 4, not finishing the opinion. Some learners say, "I think grammar is important." They trail off because they're not confident. This makes it hard for the listener to engage.
Finish your sentence. I think grammar is very important, especially for writing accurately. A complete thought sounds much more confident.
Mistake 5. Confusing I think and I thought.
I think he's correct means my current opinion. I thought he was correct means my past opinion, which may have changed. These are different. Be careful with your tenses when expressing opinions.
Mistake 6. Over-hedging.
The opposite of being too direct. Some learners soften every single statement so much that their opinion becomes unclear. Maybe, perhaps, I might possibly think that it could sort of be true that.
What does that even mean?
Pick one softener per sentence. That's enough.
Mistake 7. Using according to me.
This is a very common error. According to me, this is the best approach. This is incorrect in English. According to is only used for external sources. According to the research. According to the BBC.
For your own opinions, use in my opinion, in my view, from my perspective, never according to me.
And mistake 8, not listening to the other person.
Expressing opinions is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. You need to react to what the other person says. Use phrases like, "That's a fair point. I see what you mean. Now that you mention it," these show you're engaged. Quick reference practice.
Quick fire practice. Let's put everything together. I'll give you a situation and Jamie will model the response. Then you try.
Round 1. Situation. Your friend asks you if you think university education is worth the money.
Your response?
In my opinion, it really depends on what you study and what you want to do with your career. I believe that for some fields, like medicine or law, a university degree is essential. But for others, I'd argue that practical experience and online courses can be just as valuable. To be honest, I'm not sure the current cost is always justified.
Excellent. Round 2. Situation. In a meeting, someone says, "I think we should cut the marketing budget." You disagree.
I see your point. Cutting costs is important. However, I'd have to disagree with reducing the marketing budget specifically. I'm not convinced that's the right area to cut because marketing drives our revenue. I would argue that we should look at other budget areas first.
Brilliant. Round 3. Situation. Someone asks for your opinion on a controversial topic, climate change.
This is a topic I feel strongly about. I strongly believe that climate change is the defining challenge of our generation, and I'm absolutely convinced that immediate action is necessary. That said, I understand that people have different views on the best approach, whether it's through policy, technology, or individual behavior change. My personal view is that all three need to happen simultaneously.
And round 4. Situation. Someone gives you a great idea that changes your mind.
That's a really compelling point. Honestly, I hadn't considered it from that angle before. Now that you put it that way, I think you might be right. I've always assumed X, but admittedly, your argument makes me reconsider. I think I'd have to revise my position on this.
Perfect. Learners, these are templates you can adapt for any topic. Practice them with your own topics. Final wrap-up and review.
Wow, we have covered so much today.
Let's do a final summary. Today you learned
5 groups of basic opinion phrases: introducing, asking, expressing strong, tentative, and changing opinions.
Full and partial agreement phrases, including the yes-but structure and the yes-but-yes technique.
Polite disagreement phrases: soft, direct, and fact-correcting.
Opinion vocabulary, adjectives, adverbs, and nouns for discussing ideas.
6 real-world dialogues with friends, at work, in interviews, in class, with family, and in writing.
4 types of softeners: hedging, distancing, qualifying, and impersonal constructions.
8 common mistakes and how to fix them.
And today's core lesson: expressing opinions in English is not just about having something to say. It's about how you say it.
with the right phrases, the right softeners, and the right respect for the other person.
The most important things to remember.
1. Always signal your opinion with a phrase. I think, in my opinion, I believe. Don't let opinions sound like facts.
2. Use the yes, but structure when you disagree. Acknowledge first, then disagree. Then offer an alternative.
3. Vary your phrases. Don't repeat I think in every sentence.
4. Soften when appropriate. One hedging word is enough. Don't overhedge.
And 5. Listen to the other person and respond to what they say. Opinion conversations are dialogues, not speeches.
Your homework for today.
Take any topic you care about, technology, education, food, culture, anything, and write 5 sentences using 5 different opinion phrases from today's lesson.
Then find a conversation partner, a friend, a classmate, a language exchange partner, and practice a 2-minute discussion on that topic.
And if you don't have a partner, talk to yourself. Stand in front of the mirror and express your opinion on a topic for 2 minutes. It works, I promise.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Fluent Daily.
If this lesson was helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and helps us reach more English learners around the world.
And leave a comment below. What topic do you want to express your opinion about? Let's see what you write.
I'm Sophie.
And I'm Jamie. Keep practicing, keep improving, and we'll see you in the next episode of Fluent Daily.